Have you ever had a question for a farmer or an agripreneur about everything and anything that they do? Well, don't worry. At ICTforAg 2020, we will have our very own Ask Me Anythings with farmers and agripreneurs. Hear from these two groups about the ways in which they lead their lives, connect with digital tools and technologies, and help build sustainable food systems. Hello, participants of ICT4Ag. Welcome to our plenary session, Innovators, Ask Me Anything. We are delighted to have each of you here with us today for the next 45 minutes as we get up close and personal with 5 AgTech founders and entrepreneurs who are going to talk about the big challenges that they face in global agriculture today. My name is Shmaila Ashraf, and I, along with my colleague Sharon Kiyoko, will be guiding you along to learn all about Ag Innovators. A few of these groups have been past winners of the CGIAR Inspire Challenge, the Fall Army Worm Challenge, and the Women Connect Challenge. Our hope is that this session lets you see more than just the inspiring visions, but also a peek into the stumbling blocks, unforeseen challenges, and the big breaks, and all the less glamorous side of innovation work. Our guests have poured their blood, sweat, and tears, and a lot of their time into the ideas that they're moving forward, and this session will look at that innovation.
Thank you, Shmaila. As has been mentioned, my name is Sharon. Here's how things are going to work. I've put together a list of 10 questions that we pose to leaders of innovative agricultural projects, businesses, and NGOs around the world. Each of them will get 30 to 60 seconds to respond in turns. And we'll get to hear a patchwork of how these challenges and triumphs are in some ways quite common and in other ways marked differently. There's not one linear path for taking an idea out into the world, and I hope that you will come away with the understanding that innovation takes time and overcomes a lot more hurdles than we can imagine. Personally, I can't wait to hear from the minds and hearts behind our featured Easy Greek, Producer Direct, Fema Agri, and Solidaridad. Let's get to it. My first question to you all is, could you kindly introduce yourself and give us an elevator pitch of your work?
I'm William Linda. I'm a co-founder and CEO of Easy Greek. Easy Greek will digitize agricultural value chains to provide better production, marketing, and financial services to farmers and agribusinesses. So what we mean by this is that farmers are able to access garden mapping services, genuine seed, genuine fertilizer, genuine chemicals, keep their records, get access to markets, and get access to data-driven credit to increase their production from the palm of their hands through our mobile application called Easy Agri.
Hello everyone, my name is Daniela White and I'm the CEO and founder of Plenary. At Plenary, we're a digital investment platform that facilitates farmers and structures them into de-risked value chains for the purpose of facilitating financing into the value chain. How we support farmers is we give them access to markets, access to insurance products, agriculture insurance products. We also connect them to input providers and also structured financing via our blended finance model.
My name is Rebecca Kaduru. I am the Managing Director for Solidaridad in North America. Solidaridad is a global nonprofit network organization that works to develop more equitable and sustainable supply chains globally. We are currently working on developing an application that supports women dairy farmers in Bangladesh to get fair market price for their milk that they bring to the market. What we've been doing is combining technology at milk collection centers that measures the quality and quantity of milk and connects that back to a digital wallet to ensure that no matter who brings milk to market, women are fairly paid for the quality and quantity of the milk that they produce.
Producers Direct represents and impacts the livelihoods of over 1 million smallholder farmers across East Africa and Latin America, supporting smallholders to transform their farms into sustainable businesses through a range of farmer-designed and led services that are delivered in person and digitally. We're delighted to be one of the 2020 Inspire Challenge winners for our most recent digital innovation, Copy. Copy is an app that gamifies real-time data collection on crop yields, delivering benefits to smallholder farmers and to data scientists. Through Copy, smallholders will have access to real-time yield predictions to support their on-farm decision-making, while at the same time building a unique real-time dataset from smallholder farmers that equips data scientists worldwide with a brand new resource to advance AI innovation and train AI models, ultimately delivering our end goal of putting the power of big data and AI firmly into the hands of smallholder farmers.
Wow, that is some really important stuff. I want to now ask all of our innovators, could you just clarify for us where you're based and what crops you work with, just so our audience doesn't forget?
So as a Greek, currently we are based in Uganda from Africa, specifically in the East African region. And currently we are trying to prepare for our launch in expansion in India. And also we are currently having a roadmap for us to expand to other markets in the region of East Africa. But currently our main operations are in Uganda. The crops which we work with almost 20 crops on Easy Agri. We have vegetables, we have pulses, we have annual crops like coffee, talk about sorghum, talk about maize, talk about onions, talk about tomatoes, talk about even dairy. And we're still into discussion for us to see how can we enter the livestock industry.
We're currently based in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. The first value chains that we worked on was pig/pork value chain, and we're currently scaling up for poultry and the rice value chains in Tanzania.
Where are we based? What crops do we work with? Producers Direct is an international network of over 1 million smallholder farmers, spread across 13 countries in East Africa and Latin America, with offices in Kenya, Peru, and the UK. We work with and deliver activities through close partnerships with 37 smallholder-owned businesses and cooperatives across East Africa and Latin America, as well as through a field network of over 700 youth leaders and lead farmers. Across our international network, smallholders are growing a diverse mixture of food and cash crops, ranging from maize, cassava and other food staples, through to fruits and vegetables, and cash crops, including coffee, tea and cocoa.
It looks like we've got a really diverse range of work representing so many different corners of our globe. Bangladesh, Tanzania, Uganda, and more broadly Latin America. So I know that the current state of the world is really different for me and for all of you. And so my next question is more around that. What has changed for you during the coronavirus pandemic? Could you tell us more about it?
What has changed for Agri during COVID-19 pandemic? One, we have ups and we have lows. The upside is that our digital orders have really increased. We believe because of reduction in people mobility for them with these lockdowns which have been running. So it has given a chance for digitization to acquire a good portion of market, for people to see the value of just sitting down and make orders either through a phone call or through the mobile app, and those orders are delivered at their doorstep. Then secondly, honestly, team engagements have been really hard during pandemic. You have operational people who are supposed to prepare these orders, go to the suppliers, move everywhere. At the same time, you have engineers who are trying to develop the technology. At the same time, you have marketing people who need to craft out the message to make sure that we maximize this particular moment. But now when you look at the way people, the way we are supposed to bring the teams together as people were working from home because of limited people mobility, then it was very hard for us to create team alignment. It was really, really hard to make sure that everyone is doing the right thing at the right time in the right place. and with proper visibility on each and everything, especially the offline processes of delivering orders?
Yeah, I think during the coronavirus pandemic, what was really challenging for us is we launched this specific project. We signed the contract on this specific project in February, mid-February. And so we really were constrained on being able to get to the field and get started. I think for us, we tried to keep things going. And what that meant was that we had to start on app development without being able to get into the field and do the normal amount of human-centered design work that we would have done to ensure that the tool we were designing was relevant. And so we ended up building a prototype first. And then when things started opening up a little bit over the summer, worked with a human-centered designer, and then went out to the communities we were working within and the women farmers we were working with, and then kind of began really designing and prototyping with them. So it was a slightly kind of backwards approach to what we would normally take in kind of being very design driven from the get-go, but we've managed to adjust given the travel constraints.
COVID-19 has had a significant detrimental impact across the smallholder farming communities where we've been working internationally. These impacts have included immediate health risks posed by COVID-19, food insecurity, driven by smallholders having more limited physical access to markets to buy their food, and a significant drop in smallholder incomes, as the closure of local markets has also meant that farmers have not been able to sell their surplus crops there. We've had to respond quickly. We enhanced our focus on digitising information and training materials for smallholders on key COVID-19 challenges, including health and safety and food security crops. This has included partnering with Mercy Corps AgriFin, IDEO.org, and WeFarm to roll out a digital information campaign, collectively reaching millions of smallholders across East Africa through SMS, WhatsApp, radio, and posters. We've also upscaled our work to digitise market access, enabling smallholders to join digital cooperatives that collectively aggregate and sell products directly to buyers, particularly in situations where physical market access remains limited for them.
During the pandemic, we discovered something that was it's something that we worked on before, we worked on the idea, but we didn't really see the actual problem at hand. And I think the pandemic shed light into the gap within the supply chains that exists if not controlled in the right way. So as we're structuring these value chains during the pandemic, it really shed light into the pain points that exist within the ecosystem that make food an insecure problem here in Tanzania and in the global context.
Thanks everyone for sharing. I know that a lot has changed over the last 8 months, and it's just so fascinating to hear you all talk about how you're adapting to the demands and the needs of those that your work serves. Next, I kind of want to take a step back and give you all a chance to get up on your virtual soapbox and ask you all, what do you want this global community to know?
What I would like the global community in this forum to know and to see is the potential there is that lies within the agriculture sector and the important role that the youth in Africa, being the majority population currently existing, has a part to play. Agriculture is not just a farming perspective. Agriculture can be a wealth creation wheel that the youth in Africa can bank on to really create food security for a lot of the people within the continent, but also to increase the wealth and create job opportunities for the youth. So I really employ the youth to be part of this movement as well.
What does Producers Direct want this global community to know? 3 things. Firstly, over 1 billion smallholder farmers supply 80% of the world's food and commodities, and yet these smallholder farmers remain the most marginalised, including from the design and implementation of the technology solutions intended to benefit them, and from the benefits of big data and AI. Secondly, sustained investment in farmer-led design and the co-development of solutions is critical in order for these solutions to ultimately be sustainable and scale successfully. Thirdly, engaging youth agri-entrepreneurs in the design and delivery of these solutions is also a significant opportunity. Not only does this help smallholder farmers benefit from these emerging technologies, but it also demonstrates to youth leaders that there are exciting, profitable opportunities within agriculture, and that technology and data science can be applied in new and exciting ways to support thriving smallholder communities.
So important. Really appreciate you sharing your take with the audience. Now, some of us may be in the same position that you were in a couple of years ago, starting out on your journey, hoping to create something new and innovative that hasn't been done before. If you could turn back time and tell your younger self there was a more straightforward way or an easier path to get to where you are, I'm sure you'd do it, right? I'm curious, what lessons do you wish that you had learned before starting on the work that you're currently doing?
Lessons which I would have known before starting is a Greek one. I think from my side there are three key lessons which I'll talk about openly, which I would have known before starting is a Greek. One, realizing product market fit is complex. As startups, when we start these things, we are excited, we are young people, and we believe that getting a product market fit is something which you can just achieve in an overnight, but you realize that actually it's very complex. It requires a lot of human, social, and cash for you to be able to achieve it. So having your mindset well prepared for it, it really helps. I wish I would have known this in the beginning. Secondly, as a startup, don't undermine your value even from the beginning. By this, I mean always have clean cap tables. When I talk about cap tables, I mean capitalization tables. That's how the stake is distributed of the organization, whom you are giving it to, and basically the critical decisions about it. Not have a lot of people, having a few co-founders whom you can start with, people who are really committed. So when you have these clean cap tables, it really helps when you reach the right time for you to look for investment. That every investor, it's one of the key things which they look at before even they give you, let it be seed, let it be Series A. Then three, the third one and the last one, the lesson which I would have known when we were starting Easier Greek, private equity investment. I believe currently in Africa, according to all the funding kind of methodologies we have on the continent, I believe that private equity investment is the right investment to promote innovation accountability. What I mean that when we started It's Greek, we tried out grants, we tried out bootstrapping, tried out every sort of kind of funding. But from my lesson learned that private equity investment is the best because it comes with human, social, and cash, all those sorts of capital which are able to help you to realize your innovation accountability, so that you don't just create things for the sake of creating, but you are creating things to change the community. But most importantly, you are not losing a lot of your equity of the organization, but also the organization is growing rapidly, what I call innovation accountability.
What I wish I knew, and I think we wish as the Plenary we knew in the beginning, or maybe we took for granted almost, was how being a startup is not a destination achievement, it's a marathon. It's a constant pivoting and innovating and creating new ways where you can get your product to the market and to create value in the market. But also the fact that you do have to deal with and work with the ecosystem and partner with the government and to get them to understand what you're creating, especially if you're a startup and you're inventing new ways of how, from what has been known to be done within the ecosystem. So the bureaucracy is part of it, and it's part of the marathon that you have to tackle. So for us, I think in the beginning we kind of thought we had a great product and we would put it out to market and it would make sense. And we came to soon find out that there are definitely loopholes, you have the pain points within that sort of journey, and it's really a marathon. So we have to recalibrate our mindsets to really think this is a journey.
What lessons do I wish I'd learned before starting this work? Well, everyone talks a lot about business models to scale AgTech solutions, but my view is the global development community hasn't yet cracked this. While private investment in AgTech solutions is growing, To what extent is the value of this investment being realised by smallholder farmers? The very same smallholder farmers that these businesses have been established to support. To what extent are the data insights that are being generated by these businesses being fed back to smallholder farmers? Who ultimately has ownership of this data? How often is it that smallholder farmers retain this ownership and realise value from their data? So my lesson learnt so far is that there are still very few solutions scaling where smallholders co-own the business and have an equitable share in the value that's being realised from these businesses. However, my goal is for Producers Direct to become one of an increasingly growing number of enterprises who are achieving this and are maximising the value that these businesses are returning ultimately to smallholder farmers.
Really appreciate the thoughtful and illuminating responses. It's clear to me that a lot of consistent reflection and sometimes course correction is essential in keeping up this difficult work. I know that the seemingly glamorous end product and sometimes the public perception of the work is not always indicative of the struggles and trials that founders have to go through in the early stages of bringing something new into existence. Can you share a time that you wanted to give up? And what kept you going?
Times where I wanted to give up. There are a lot, even up to now. Even up to now. But I guess when you try to think about it, what is pushing, when you really critically think about it, is that always, every time when I'm going to give up, I always try to go back to the vision of the company, of us creating endless farming possibilities to serve millions of people, to serve millions of smallholder farmers, to create huge employment for young people like us. Now, when you always remember about such big visions which are bigger than you, even you get scared, but most importantly, you get motivated and you try to get back on the track. You think about the team, you think about the community. So when you give up, what it means for the side of your staff, what it means for the side of your community, what it means on the side of your partners, what it means on the side of your co-founders. Basically, when you try to think about the vision and the accountability which you have around the society, that's something which has kept me going even up to now.
Are there any times when I've wanted to give up? Most definitely. It's not easy, and sometimes the scale of the challenge can feel insurmountable. What keeps me going is the energy I get from spending time with, listening to, and learning from the smallholder farmers we work with, particularly our international network of youth leaders, who are always excited and eager to share their ideas and innovations.
And I think one of the big challenges of working for yourself or working in more of a startup environment is the pretty consistent rejection when it comes to funding. And I think that balance between having really big, bold ideas, wanting to implement, and then having to kind of check that with the resources that it takes to make things happen can be, it's you really have to build up kind of a resilient skin to come through that. And I think now working for a large global NGO, the parameters are a little bit different, but I think just overcoming that and knowing that there are so many people working within the space of social enterprise and probably involved with this conference as well, who aren't working for an NGO but are self-employed and really trying to push themselves to make something magical happen. I think just knowing that keep going, and the more and more you put in and are able to pivot and foresee changes and have that agile ability to adjust, that eventually when you do round that corner and get whatever you're working towards started, I think is really rewarding.
I think there's a lot of times that we really thought, is this it? Is this the end of this great idea that we had? And even when you're dealing with government entities, trying to get the government to understand your model, to create policies for a concept of what you like what we were creating. It really gave us an anxiety of, is this going to work? Should we give up? But I think I applaud the team that I have for really being the motivating force behind the whole agri movement. By really, we were motivated, we really hurdled in and motivated and pivoted in ways that can still keep us afloat, but still tackling the challenges at hand. So yeah, we did try. We gave it a thought of giving up, but I think the impact and the value we created was much bigger than us. That it gave us no option but to keep going and keep creating value.
It's not a cakewalk, but the purpose-driven work that you are all doing can absolutely be rewarding. I'm curious to know if the work that you set out to do in the early stages of your endeavor has changed. Have you had to pivot the focus of your work, and what was that like?
Have we ever had to pivot? Of course, for the 5 years of our existence, or for the 5 years of existence of Easy Agri, we have pivoted a number of times. We started as a data-only company. Basically, we are collecting data for farmers and try to take it to financial institutions to make sure that they provide loans to the farmers, but of which the very proposition was not good enough to convince the financial institutions. Right now, we are already in the platform plus ecosystem game, or what we call the ecosystem plus technology game, to try to look at the end-to-end market of AgTech. Now this is the current model which you're trying to drive, and this is what you're trying to build. How it felt even during all these times of pivoting along the journey. It's scary, it's demotivating, it's hard to convince the rest of the teams, talk about your key management staff, talk about the co-founders, talk about the investors, because you have to really think about what exactly you're going to tell them and the facts which you have to correct to make sure that everyone agrees to be on the boat to go together on the new direction of the business.
Have we ever had to pivot? Well, perhaps not a complete pivot, but we are constantly adapting our plans as we learn about what is and isn't working in the smallholder communities where we have activities. One example is when we began to develop our digital platform a few years ago to support farmers aggregate and sell their surplus food crops. Our original focus was purely on co-developing a digital platform with smallholder farmers. However, it quickly became apparent that we couldn't only invest in a digital tool. We also needed to build the in-person capacity to run associated supply chain logistics. That actually became the start of our journey to invest in youth leaders within the smallholder communities where we work, with these youth leaders being trained to run the supply chain logistics. And now actually that's become a really successful aspect of this work, as we've created income and employment opportunities for youth within.
Evidently, not everything ends up the exact way that we plan when we set off on a journey. That's part of the fun, I guess. Now I know that you're still around and doing this work due to a fair amount of grit, persistence, and probably a bit of luck too. I want you to put yourself 10 years into the future. What impact do you envision your work having on the world in 2030?
Sure. What impact of Easy Agri in 2030? We're seeing a lot of smallholder farmers basically us trying to increase the household income of smallholder communities in rural areas. So we are seeing millions of them, their lives which have changed because of Easy Agri. Then secondly, we are seeing millions of jobs being created, especially for Easy Agri agents, our youth who are down in the rural community trying to provide these services on behalf of Easy Agri to the smallholder farmers. We are seeing millions of these young people getting jobs, their income changing, and them having a living from agriculture. Not only holding the hoe, but holding the hoe digitally, or holding a spray pump digitally, or doing anything which is off farm but digitally, which creates sustainability on the side of smallholder farmers, but also creates employment for these young people. Then thirdly, the impact we are seeing a more structured agricultural value chains plus supply chains which is attractive enough for the rest of people also to get involved in agriculture. Those who are not involved in agriculture, them being attracted because everything around agriculture, it's easier than before, or it's easier than before easier Greek. That's the impact which you're trying to see in 2030.
Yeah, I think with regards to this project and with regards to work in general, whenever I'm asked a question about what do you want impact to be 10 years later, I always kind of think not in terms of myself. I don't necessarily know if I could say that me personally or Solidaridad as an organization could be single-handedly responsible for innovation 10 years from now. But I think what we can do, and what I think my biggest goal is, and as an organization our biggest goal is to actually facilitate the process for people to create their own impact. So not to come in and say, this is the way we should develop this tool and this is what's going to benefit you, but actually say, okay, how can we work together? What is it that you need? What is it that you want? And really work on co-designing that process and giving, in this particular case, women in smallholder farming agency and ownership over the process, so that if our impact is that 10 years from now women have created new pathways for themselves, I think that is the ultimate vision of success.
Ensuring smallholders have data access and ownership, critical to enabling smallholder farmers to proactively manage the multiple climatic and socio-economic risks that they face. By 2030, we want the power of big data and AI to be firmly in the hands of smallholder farmers.
10 years from now, Verma Agri, I see a real investment house that supports farmers to help them grow from smallholder farmers to agri-enterprises, giving them the support that they need to thrive economically, socially within the ecosystem that they are in. So if I was to put a number to it, I foresee the value of us helping about close to 100,000 farmers in 5 different value chains that we're targeting to tackle within the next 5 to 10 years. So we are very excited by the work and the vision that we have on board driving this Plenary.
Thank you for painting such a beautiful world that I would love to live in. So I promise this is the very last serious question that you'll get from me. This is for the people who are tuning in who would love to leave a legacy like yours someday in the future. For the aspiring AgTech innovator out there following in your footsteps. Do you have one piece of advice that you can highlight for them? Thank you.
Yeah, develop a thick skin, but keep going. That would be my piece of advice.
What advice do I have for my fellow AgTech innovators around there in the world is that entrepreneurship is hard. It's really, really hard, to be frank with you. But the good thing about it is inspiration. It comes from within you as a person, as a driving force. So my advice to you is that however much it's complex, just jump. Jump off the cliff or jump off out of the plane. Just jump without your parachute being tightened on your belly or whatever, on your abdomen. Just jump, grab your parachute, jump, fix it as you are falling down, fix it on your body very tightly. But most importantly, please remember that you have to pull the parachute 1,000 feet from the ground. That's the most. What I mean in this is that just start whatever idea which you have. You fix it along the way. This entrepreneurship is not taking Armstrong to the moon, but entrepreneurship is driving through bumpy roads of Uganda, of Africa. So basically, you keep on steering as you are driving, as you are moving from one place to another, as you are steering, so you continue learning, building, and measuring your value proposition, your product market fit until you achieve it. That's That's the value of entrepreneurship. So don't wait that when everything is good, don't wait when everything is set, and that's when you jump. Please jump, and jump now. Don't wait tomorrow. Just jump now.
One piece of advice? Well, if you're designing for smallholder farmers, always involve them in the design and development of the solution right from the onset. That might feel difficult, time-consuming, and sometimes it is challenging to continually be working with smallholder communities in the iteration and design and prototyping phases. But actually, my view is ultimately, in the end, it's always worth it.
Sharon, that was a really great question, and thank you all for sharing your sage wisdom with us. I hope that everyone listening was taking notes. I wasn't, but I will go back and watch this session since it is recorded. So I promised all of you that we were going to get to some fun questions too, and I want to make sure that we do that. I know that a lot of this work isn't all business, and we got to have some fun and some excitement in there. So a question for all of our ag innovators. If you weren't doing this ag innovation work, what would you be doing instead?
So if I wasn't in agriculture, I'm very sure the medical field would have exploited a lot of my desires and my passion to make sure that also the dying people in our rural communities, people who don't have access to a lot of expensive medical equipment, can access. We use technology and software at least to solve some of these big challenges of the gap for expensive medical equipment.
When I was younger, I wanted to be an archaeologist. I don't know if I would do that as a backup career now. I think I had recently seen Jurassic Park when that became my goal or my dream. I would love to be able to be more in academia. Like I'd love to go back and be do a PhD and maybe become a college professor or something along those lines. I think that while I love the implementation side of work, it also is very much tied to fundraising. And I think sometimes being able to focus energy on being more of a thought partner and teaching and working with young people through that process would be really rewarding.
If I wasn't working at Firma Agri, working on Firma Agri and all these other products that we're working on, I definitely think I would still be an economist. Kind of okay with numbers, and I think that's where my skills shine a little bit more. Prior to this, I was an economist for Shell, and so if I wasn't working on this, definitely that's the line of work I would probably still see myself doing.
If I wasn't doing this work, well, I started off my career counting caterpillars in Costa Rica before realizing that actually much of the Earth's biodiversity is managed by smallholder farmers, and we all have a lot to learn from them. So hopefully, as long as we all keep listening to smallholder farmers and working towards respecting and protecting the world's biodiversity, I'll have that career to fall back on as and when I might need it.
Wow. So many talented people in this panel. It's just so awe-inspiring. I guess I should answer the question too. I mean, if I weren't doing this, maybe I would be Vice President of the United States or a television host, but most likely I'd probably be a barista at a local coffee shop. Really love coffee. So keeping our eyes on the ag innovators, my very last question for all of you is that, this is an ag conference after all, and we love talking about staple crops and we love talking about plants and agriculture. So my last question is, if you were a plant, what would you be?
Okay, if I thought I was a plant, let me just try to think about it for a second. A plant. Anyway, it's a nice question. Can I ask why? Anyway, so I'll not ask why that question. But seriously, if I thought I was to be a plant, I think I would be maize. And the reason why I would select maize is because maize is a very, very valuable crop that every part of it is used for something. when we buy maize which can't be consumed by human beings, at least this maize is consumed by animals. If it can't be consumed by animals, at least this maize can be used as manure. So when I try to think about, especially in our rural setting of Africa, when you try to see how young children who go to school, they survive on porridge. The kids who go to school still, when it's lunchtime, they survive on posho. Even when you come to the household or our homes, at least posho or porridge is one of the meals which can survive the household. So when I look at all this value which maize is trying to create in our community to make sure that we have lives in Africa, our young generation survives on posho and porridge, I think I admire maize if I don't have to be that particular crop.
What plant would I be? I'd love to be a bryophyte. Why? Well, some bryophyte species are known to be among the first pioneers to move into and thrive in new environments, while others have reputations as resilient survivors. So for me, those are all really key, important qualities to aspire to.
Yeah, I think I would be a passion fruit plant. The previous company that I worked with supported young women to start their own passion fruit farming cooperatives, and then processed the fruit into pulp concentrate. And I mean, the plants are, they're really kind of temperamental, but they grow and they grow really big and they have these really beautiful flowers. And if, they end up going all the way through to fruiting, it's a really nice fruit as well. So I think that's what I would be.
If I was a plant, I'd like to say I would be a cactus, simply because what I've learned throughout this journey is how to really work with limited resources and still thrive and still show progress and not take be swayed by the trends but really hone in on what you're doing and really be focused. What I like about a cactus is it's very stern, it's very resilient in however conditions that exist, and also it does not sway with the wind, and it is very thorny, which means it doesn't take no mess from anyone. So I think maybe I would be a cactus.
I love hearing about all the plants, and I'll say if I were a plant, I would honestly probably be this guy right here who's a rubber tree and one of my favorites. Thank you all so much for participating. It's amazing to hear from this great group of leaders, and I hope that you all had fun, and I hope that our audience got to learn a thing or two about AgTech innovation and what these founders are doing. I really want to give a special shout out to all of our contributors for supporting this plenary session. Babangona, Easy Agric, FEMA Agri, Producers Direct, and of course Solidaridad. So thank you all for joining us. Please make sure to connect with our AgTech Innovators in the Whova app and throughout the conference. And we'll see you all soon. Oh, you're all still here. Hey, I hope you're all ready to take a little mental break and visit us in one of our social sessions. This social session is going to look specifically at staple crops, whether it's rice or maize, and thinking about what do we love so much about rice and maize? How do we cook it? How do we grow it? And everything in the middle. So stay tuned and join me at our next social hour.